Hey book lovers, Kaylee here, and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And today it is the first installment of Netflix Made Me Read It. And guys, I read The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, which is book 1 in the Bridgerton series, and I have thoughts. I'm going to start out right off the top by letting you know there are going to be spoilers, because how can I talk about certain things that I read in this book without there being spoilers? So without further ado, welcome to the world of Bridgerton. For a little TLDR, Bridgerton is a series of 8 books that covers the children by the last name Bridgerton. And each of these 8 books covers one of the siblings from the Bridgerton family. So we have Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, and Hyacinth. Got him, I think. Correct me if I messed up. Now, all the while, they're out in society, Regency London, trying to find love, and there is also these society gossip papers written by Lady Whistledown. Nobody has any idea who Lady Whistledown is, but she likes to put her nose into everything. And so this book actually does have, at the start of each chapter, a little bit of, well, most chapters I think, a little bit of the society pages and how it relates to that chapter. This is also what is the basis of season 1 of Bridgerton on Netflix. And if you do not know, this book covers Daphne. So she is the 4th eldest sibling of the Bridgertons, and her romance with Simon, who is the Duke of Hastings. There is such a cult-like following for this series and this book in particular. I'm not totally surprised that it turned into a Netflix show. However, the fact that it is a historical romance and those are typically pretty raunchy is very interesting to see. So I'm intrigued to see where this is going to go in the future of film, like book to film adaptations. And possibly we're going to be seeing more historical romance, because Bridgerton just took the world by storm. I ended up picking it up, like I said, and then I watched the trailer for Bridgerton on Netflix, and I was blown away. I could not get over how beautiful everything looked. Everything was so stunning. It looked so cheeky. I got really excited. The hype was so much, I couldn't get away from it. So for Medievalathon this year, I ended up picking it up as my prompt for first book in a series. The first half of this book was so much fun. That was actually even my one and only update on Goodreads, was talking about how fun I felt this book was. I absolutely loved the family dynamics. I thought that Julia Quinn was able to get the huge number of siblings. Each of them got their due, each of them had a distinct personality, and how they all acted around each other and in their family unit. It was such a joy to read that side of this book. I found that this book also did a very good job at differentiating the characters, like I said before with the family, but also with defining Simon as a character. I love how much it delved into his past. I love how it focused on his overcoming of his stutter, and how even as an adult, when he feels like it's under control, it's not really always under control. So you can see that little chink in his armor, and I really appreciated that, because you knew that when the stutter was coming, it was all because he was so overwhelmed and emotional, and I just felt like that was a very real way of showing that. I also appreciated that Simon as a character wasn't actually a rake. He had a lot of issues that he's going through as a child and as an adult, to be honest, and a lot of his issues are underlying from the mistreatment of his father. And I was really aiming with this book that that would be something that he and Daphne would look into together and figure out together as a team, but that didn't really happen. Now, on to Daphne. I do like how she was feisty, yet demure and innocent, but smart. She is the type of female character who is not like other girls, but she comes by it honestly, and it doesn't come off as that I'm not like other girls that a lot of authors find themselves sort of butted into a corner with, and it doesn't feel like she hits you over the head with it. Now, this brings me to the part of Daphne's character that I absolutely hated, and that is her false naivety, because she, like I said, is portrayed as this very smart, self-sufficient woman, and she is true to that character trait throughout the book until it doesn't suit the purposes of the plot anymore. I feel like Quinn really wrote herself into a corner in that sense, as well as in the fact of Simon's vehemently being against having kids. I'll get to that more in a moment. But the reason that I say that her naivety is false is because Quinn did try so hard to make us believe that she was ignorant. I felt like she went out of her way to write Daphne as a strong woman, as an independent woman with her own thoughts, able to make up her own mind. She even comments about how she's not smart in mathematics, but she is really smart in other things. So when a certain something happens and Daphne backtracks and thinks that she's so stupid, or tries to play off stupid, I should say, it just... And yes, when it comes to her wedding night, she is definitely ignorant in that sense, and her mother doesn't really help her out with giving her any sort of insight into what happens between a man and a woman after they're married. So that ignorance I can definitely understand. But it is the fact that once she realizes what's going on, she's smart enough to draw her own conclusions and figure it out. And obviously I'm tiptoeing around like the huge awful thing that happens in this book. But I do just want to backtrack to Simon again, because this is really the underlying thing that makes me so against, I'll be honest, this book. So throughout the book, Simon says very clearly, very often, that he does not want to get married, he does not want kids. He's actually willing to die for his beliefs because he doesn't want to not be able to give Daphne the thing that she has always dreamed of. Now, whether or not his feelings on this are due to some underlying issues with his father, that doesn't matter. The fact is that he says this very clearly over and over and over again, that he cannot have kids, he will not have kids, and when he says this to Daphne and Daphne takes him at his word and says, you know what, I love you more than my dream, so I will marry you, even though you can't have kids, we see into Simon's mind, we get his POV of that, and he is elated. He's so excited that this woman that he loves, who he thought that he could never have because he wasn't able to give her what she always wanted out of life, the fact that she was willing to give that up for him was everything to him. Now, had Daphne known that his can't was actually a won't, that's a conversation that they could have for another time. Because honestly, he could have eventually changed his mind. They could have had a discussion about it. They could have had a healthy heart-to-heart and talked about his issues and figured out why it is that he felt like he couldn't have children, and realized that it was actually because of his hate against his father and that he actually did want kids. That could have been done in such a healthy, nuanced way that would have made my enjoyment of this book so much more. But no, apparently that wasn't on the table as an option. So now, this brings us to the part of this book that ruined everything for me. And that's Daphne taking advantage of Simon when he is half drunk and half asleep, which ultimately potentially forces him into a future that he never wanted. And then she backtracks with her thoughts and tries to justify the situation, claiming that she didn't understand the implications of what she did. However, in the moment, Quinn writes it that she is fully aware of what she's doing. She understands the difference between can't and won't. She understands why he's been pulling out, and she bears down on him when he's half drunk and half asleep. And then, furthermore, Quinn ends up writing it that Simon apologizes to Daphne. It's so messed up. So obviously once everything happened and Simon realizes what happened, he gets mad and he leaves her, which is totally understandable. However, during Simon's reflections while he's away, he actually decides to come to the conclusion that he's mad at himself. He's not mad at Daphne. He's mad at himself because when he got angry with her after everything, he started to stutter. And that just proves that he wasn't in control of himself, and that he basically reduced himself back to the helpless child that he was at like 10 years old. being abandoned by his father, basically. I think it's totally reasonable for Simon to be mad at Daphne for essentially raping him. There's no tiptoeing around the word. Sure, he can be angry and disappointed at himself because he let his emotions get a hold of him, which caused him to stutter, blah 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 blah. And I also do feel like it's important to note that Daphne never actually apologizes. She is acting like the wounded victim in all of this, and I can't stand it. Okay. I have so many other things to say about all of that, but I will admit the start, like I said at the beginning of this video, the first half of this book I actually really did enjoy. I was having a lot of fun with it. I loved the family interactions, like I said. I thought that for the most part these characters were well fleshed out and the plot was going along smoothly. But I feel like Julia Quinn had herself stuck in such a state of mind that she knew Simon didn't want kids, she knew Daphne did, that she couldn't think of a better way to resolve it, and I feel like that is a detriment to the writing. I can't really give it a 1-star rating because up until the issues that I had with this book, I was having a lot of fun and I thought that it was well written. So instead of it being like a perfect read or a 4-star read, I was so disappointed and so thrown off and so disgusted by what this book ended up doing that I had to drop it down. So the rating for this I would probably say is midline, but I'm definitely never recommending it because a good portion of this, the writing was fun, it was well done, the plot was there, the little nods to future plots are there for future books, and the mystery of Lady Whistledown was kind of fun, but ultimately everything else that happened in the last half of this book just kept dropping it down and down and down. So, while Netflix initially made me want to read this, I don't think I'm going to be watching the Netflix show. I have a few friends who have watched it, and I have confirmed with them that my issues with this book have not been fixed with the show, which is shocking to me. Like, with all of the... I hope that it's all forward thinking with the plotting and the casting and everything like that. With all of that potential, the writer's room could have taken the opportunity to do a rewrite. I'm not usually one who wants a rewrite on a series. I like things to be very true to the book. But this had so many issues, and I wish that it was talked about more. I do know that there are some parts of the internet who talk about everything that happens in this book and says don't read this one but read the rest of the series. I feel like that needs to be a more well-known thing because I knew that there was something that was off about this book that I heard, but I did not know to the extent, and it's very disappointing. And I feel like the plot point is also overlooked potentially because of the cult-like following of this fandom. I mean, they're so passionate and I love that. I love passion in book series, but it's more so when they talk about it, it's like, oh, this book was fun, but you can skip it because there's some iffy stuff that happens, but continue on to the next series. I feel like that shouldn't be as, like, swept under the rug as it seems to be. But obviously when it comes to the Netflix show, I'm not going to be able to give my full opinions because I have not watched it, and I feel very hesitant to ever watch it after reading this book. I also don't know if I'm going to continue on with the series because of this book. I know that people say that the issues in this one don't continue on in the rest of the series, but it's not going to be at the top of my list. So ultimately, I am disappointed that Netflix made me read this. I'm so upset. I could rant about this for so much longer because I had a lot of obvious issues with this book. Like I said, there were some things that I enjoyed, but everything got ruined with the last half. Alright, so I know that I said when I did my intro to this series in that video that I wasn't going to bash on books. That was before I read this one. So hopefully this is an outlier and that's not going to happen again, and that I actually will want to watch the show after reading the book. But this one, for being the first Netflix made me read it, is a lot. But please, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Have you read this book? Have you watched the show? What were your thoughts on that scene? What were your thoughts on how like the fallout was treated? I'm very curious. Also, be sure to like this video if you do like more in-depth analysis into stories and want to see more of that. I don't like to rant about books, but sometimes you need to be very critical. And subscribe to my channel for more videos and hit that bell notification icon so then that way you are aware anytime I post new videos. And until next time, keep reading.